Today, we're going to be replacing the starter on this 97 540i behind me. The car has about 250,000 miles on it, and occasionally when I try to start it, it just clicks and does not start. The next time I try to start it, it starts perfectly fine, and in fact, when I tried to get this on video, it started fine every single time. The last time this car was on the lift, I remember the starter looking particularly rough, with the wire that runs between the solenoid and the starter motor looking all green and corroded, so we're going to be replacing it with a brand new starter in the box next to me. Additionally, we're going to check the power and the ground to make sure those are in good shape too. Let's begin. The first step to replacing the starter is to disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. This is because the power feed going to the starter is connected directly to battery power, so this is required. Disconnecting the battery is pretty simple. Typically there's plastic here and a brace. However, in this car, it's already been taken apart. The ground is going to be this brown wire here. It's closest to the bumper, and you just need a 13 millimeter. You just loosen it. So, counterclockwise, it's already got a square on the back of it. So it will hold itself. And just give it a couple turns. Because this is the ground, you don't have to worry about shorting anything on the body. And when we pull this off, gently, you'll see all the lights and the power in the car has gone out. With the battery disconnected, we now have to remove the under panel. It's held on with Phillips head screwdrivers that require about a quarter turn to a half turn to remove, and they're captive. So pretty easy to pull off. This one you can leave on if you want. You can do it from up here. Either way, it's a choice. If you just kind of hold it with the back of your hand, or the hand on the back right here, it's going to be held into the front of the bumper, and then you can remove the whole thing and move it out of the way. We are looking at the starter from underneath of the car, and you can see this is the main battery feed, and then on top of that we're going to have the signal that actually starts it, and also another wire for the solenoid. Each of these is a different size. This is a 13 millimeter, this is a 10 millimeter, and this is an 8 millimeter. So we need to disconnect these first. You're probably gonna have to unclip some of this wiring in here. And I also know that the procedure is different between having primary cats here versus the earlier style cars, which is what this one is, without the cats up in the headers. The clearance on these earlier cars is actually much better. We're gonna start to remove the 3 wires that we need to get to, which are going to be this 10 millimeter, which I'll do next since I have the 10 out. So we're going to attempt to take this off. The next wire we're going to attempt to take off this 8 millimeter right here. It's hard for me to show you. Hopefully you can see it. And finally, we're going to take this 13 off. This is the one that has 12 volts going to it from the battery. So be very careful and make sure the battery is disconnected before doing this, because if your wrench contacts the frame and it's energized, you're going to see sparks. Okay, so that wire came right off, and then these wires are kind of looped up over top with apparently zip ties. I don't think those are factory zip ties. So there's one, So these two are out. At this point, the only thing holding the starter in are actually the two bolts that hold it to the bell housing. There are two bolts that hold the starter in. They're both E12s. One is right here below this bump, and the other one is right above it. And it's pretty hard to get it on camera, I apologize. But one is right where that socket is, and the other one's above it. These bolts are apparently pretty tight, so we got the breaker bar out. All right, that one's loose. Or at least it broke loose. And then we're gonna try and get this one up here. When in doubt, grab a cheater pipe. Okay, it's coming loose. There we go. In theory, there is nothing holding the starter in right now. Trimming these wires out of the way so we don't have to worry about them getting caught in anything. Keep that one down there. The starter, the last one when we took it out, is a little bit stuck. So you just kind of move it out of the way of the pry bar, and that will help loosen it from the bell housing. And sure enough, it's loose. There is a heat shield here, and there's 4 8mm bolts that hold it in place. Just want to zip them out real quick. Oh, and this wasn't even held in, so I do believe this car has been apart before. So we'll just kind of slide it out of the way and see if they gave us room to get the starter out. Which is a jigsaw puzzle, but there is one starter out. Here's the starter that came out, and as you can tell, it's still got the heat shield on it. There's one bolt here that remains. I took these two off in the rear, so I think when we put the new one back in, I'm going to put the entire starter in with the heat shield in place. And also, if you happen to look at this starter, see it's all rusty. I do think this is probably the problem, because it's not in good shape at all. This is 6.8 Newton meters. The torque spec on the heat shield is 6 Newton meters, but this is as low as my torque wrench goes. So we're just going to sandy check this real quick. We're going to try to get this back in. So I took this out the first time. I had to put it in kind of backwards, and I'm thinking I see why. Oh, come on. And, let's see, can I rotate this? Yes, we can. Okay. Right into place. I have switched camera angles so you can see what's going on, and all I'm doing is lining this up in the bell housing so we can install it. And it should just kind of sit up there. And I'll stick a bolt in. So now what we need to do is kind of fish all the wires back to where they belong. One is going to be smaller, so this one is going to go on the 8mm, and the bigger one will go on the 10mm. So I believe just like that. And that one just goes on like that. 10mm on. Probably good. And now it's time to fish this heat shield back up. So now we can install his power wire. And yes, I can see the green corrosion there. But this is all, it feels solid. I think it's fine. So we're gonna run with it for right now. All right. And after this, we'll just kind of zip tie these wires out of place. Here's the ground cable. It looks fine to me. I do see some corrosion at the end, but I think I'm just going to do a visual inspection on this. Starter looked bad enough that I think that was probably the problem. All that is left is to torque the rear bolts to 45 Nm. So we're going to torque these down. I'm going to hand tighten them first. If you're wondering, no, I cannot see what I'm doing. All right, the starter's in. At this point, the only thing remaining is to reconnect the battery, test it, make sure it starts, and then we're gonna put the under tray back on. I'm gonna do that off camera because it's pretty easy. If you got anything out of this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us grow the channel so that we can continue to do more videos.